There is a whole world of cinema waiting to be discovered. You just have to overcome that 1-inch barrier known as subtitles. My name is Kieran Griffiths, joined, as always, by Nick Labarrow, Josh Barry. Gentlemen, how are we?
Good, mate. Going to Italy.
Going to Italy.
First time.
Italy.
Two first
First
times
time?
in a row. How exciting.
After dark session.
Yes, yeah, the sun has gone down.
We've
we had to
gone
wait.
moody for the
Yeah.
Malena.
We had to wait for the children to go to bed and for God to close his eyes so
To
we could
talk about this film.
Malena.
Because this is definitely after the was it Watershed?
I needed a shower after
When
this
they
film, I'll say
is
that.
that what it is with TV, why they can't do certain stuff until after a certain time?
Yeah.
call
It might be a watershed moment, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just making shit up.
That's what we do here. We're pretty good at it.
Yes.
So if you've stuck around this long, you know how good
Yeah.
we are.
But the reason that we have to wait until after dark and we had to tell our partners that we were doing something more wholesome is that we're talking about the 2000 erotic drama film, that's straight from Wikipedia, directed by Giuseppe Tornatore, Malena, starring Monica Belluci.
Yes.
Not John Belushi.
No, as we've discovered.
The Belushi.
Yeah, the other Belushi.
The
This
other
is
Belushi.
pre-Matrix Monica Bellucci as well, by the way. So
Is Monica Belluci in The Matrix?
Matrix 2.
That explains why I didn't know that. Because as far as I'm concerned, there is one Matrix film.
Yes,
This was before her big Hollywood entrance, I guess you could say. Yeah, I think
right.
this put her on the mainstream map with a
Yeah.
particular producer.
So she did this in 2000 and then Irreversible in 2002.
I think that definitely
that
would have helped
probably
too.
would
Yeah.
have, yeah.
Jeez, that is a...
That's a double feature.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know what we're doing next time.
Talk about spectrums. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, Malena, written and directed by Giuseppe Tornatore, who most people would know for his 1998 film Cinema Paradiso, which is one of the highest rated, most well-regarded films ever. You talk to a lot of
Yeah,
directors,
yeah.
and big directors, and a lot of them would list Cinema Paradiso as one of the best films ever made.
Seen it?
No.
Seen it?
Yeah.
No. So there we go. I've got it on Blu-ray though, actually.
Does it live up to that sort of acclaim?
In all honesty, I can't tell you when I saw it, and I wasn't. No, not for me at that time. But I am interested, and especially watching this and realizing who it was, I was like, yeah, I would actually like to go back and see that.
I'm in that same boat. I want to
reckon
watch
it was
that now.
10, 15 years ago. So,
But
I
it's
think
a very highly regarded
Yeah.
film.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
super
absolutely,
critically
yeah.
acclaimed.
Yeah.
So many iconic shots, like
So many.
Babylon, the ending of Babylon, that's the montage of cinema has shots from Cinema Paradiso.
yes,
So it's very influential, yeah.
But a very different sort of film to what we're talking about today in Malena. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know how this came across my radar.
Yes.
Probably because I'm
I
the
know.
pervert.
It's so funny. Susie said, why did Kieran pick this one? And I was like, I don't know.
He's
Maybe it was
interested
on his
in
list.
Italy
I'm sure,
during the tumultuous war
I'm
times.
sure.
and
I thought.
one of the young boys coming of age would be like that, and also Monica Bellucci's breasts.
I'm sure.
Kieran picked it because he's a degenerate.
Well, I thought to myself, Kieran was scanning through SBS one night and saw the poster and went, I'll put that on my watch list.
night SBS. It got us all.
That was truly Australian men's coming of age moment.
That was
Late
I
night
remember.
SBS.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember watching SBS late. Oh man, jeez Louise.
What are you watching? It's a movie, Mum.
It's a foreign film.
It's our house.
You don't understand.
It's on SBS.
It's a different language.
It's a public broadcaster. How bad can it be?
At 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, how bad can it be? Yeah.
Oh, God bless SBS. ABC ain't got shit.
You're right.
But no, I genuinely don't know how it came across my list. I think, it was just one of those films that I probably saw someone somewhere recommend it, and it got added to my watch list along with the other, 1,000 films that are on there.
Yeah.
And I realised we hadn't been to Italy,
Yeah.
and there are so many classic Italian films that I could have picked. But I thought, why not pick something a bit left field?
Sure.
Everyone's seen the big foreign films. Let's go somewhere a little bit different with obviously a big name director and a big name actress, but before she was necessarily a household name that she became later on. So the synopsis of Malena, I mean, where do you even start?
Well, it's a coming of age movie.
Yeah, I think erotic drama
Kind of, it's
In a
a
literal
little bit
sense.
reductive as well.
It's
the
a coming
kind
of age story, but like very much told from the point of view of a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I think it is definitely a horny film because I think as all previous 12-year-olds at one point can understand how hormonal that time was in our lives. But I would even argue that outside of the erotic drama, it is what would a teenage boy be getting up to during a war-torn time in Italy's history?
yeah.
You know, when there's actually not that much to do. Yeah.
So it's set in a small town in Italy. It starts in 1940 when the war breaks out, when Mussolini declares war on Great Britain and France. And the synopsis of it is, amidst the war climate, a teenage boy discovering himself becomes love-stricken by Malena, a sensual woman living in a small, narrow-minded Italian town. And that small boy is Renato.
Yes.
He's 12 or 13, I think, at the start of the film, and it sort of chronicles his
12,
his coming of age throughout the Second World War in this small town.
Yeah.
Which I think people who don't know history, and I mean, I know that most people would know this, but I think a lot of people forget that Italy was a fascist country during the Second World War.
Yes.
And was actively supporting the Nazi Party. And it's like, I know my history, but it's really jarring to watch these scenes of people in the street giving the salute.
The Nazi salute.
Yeah. Like, you got like this beautiful Italian village and all these like, happy Italian people just living their life in this beautiful town.
Sun-drenched town too. Like there is never a bad day.
No, the whole film is just orange because it's
beautiful.
it's always a perfect day.
Malena's always in a sundress. Like it's fantastic.
Yeah, they're by the beach.
Yeah.
And then you've got people cheering radio messages from Mussolini and giving the Heil Hitler salute. It's like, oh boy, it's that kind of
Wait
thing.
a second. Hold on. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Hans, are we the bad guys?
That's good.
So it's there's definitely a lot going on.
Yes,
right. Like you've
absolutely.
got, I think, at the start of the film, Renato's talking and he says, I remember this day because it was the day that I got my first bike.
Yeah.
It's the day that Mussolini declared war, and it's the first time I saw Malena.
Yeah.
I think that's another important aspect to know as well, is that this film is narrated by a much older Renato. Like he is recounting this time in his life as well. So while we do see it through the perspective of him as a 12-year-old, it's actually very much more romanticized recollections of it as well, which I think is a very interesting way to look at this story as well. Because I think if we looked at, the romanticism of a 12-year-old boy falling in love with a late 20s, early 30s older woman is probably far more sexual at 12 than it is at 50. When you're recounting, you're like, actually, no, I think I was in love with her. Whereas at 12, you're just like, boy, I know what I'm doing tonight, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Every night after that.
literally 7 times a day. But like,
You're gonna go blind.
I do think I think having him recollecting those memories is a far more interesting way to sort of look at this story for sure.
Yeah, and it frames it in a more interesting way in terms of, I guess, that context of looking back on his time and his youth. And I think it's really funny, right? Like the three things he remembers from his childhood all happening on this day. Like, things that would be big for a kid like that. I got my first bike.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you got your first bike? Like I genuinely do.
Yeah, no,
like,
I do. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you the exact date, but I remember.
getting it, right?
I don't.
I guess the
remember
war's a big part of it.
Yeah, I don't remember when my country declared war on anyone. But,
No.
And I feel like
But I
if,
remember mine. No.
but that's it, right? Like I think it's one of those things where I think almost all boys at that age will probably remember some older girl or woman that they were like, that is the most
infatuated with, right?
that is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Even if you don't quite understand the concept of like attraction yet, you're like, this is making me feel things.
Yeah.
100%,
And Renato, in the way that only a 12-year-old boy can, thinks that he has some chance with this late 20s woman.
The confidence is fantastic.
Isn't it?
Like this
Despite
naivety.
being told by every other teenager, all these older boys in the village being like, because they all have that dumb hope as well that they're going to get
And I mean,
with her,
every man in the town does. Like, this isn't just his
that-
infatuation with her. It is, she walks through the streets and people stop and everyone
Yeah.
stops and stares.
And literally.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, this is bizarre.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's stunning.
Stunning. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's Monica
It's
Belluci,
Monica
in the year
Belluci.
2000.
Yeah.
As if you wouldn't.
No,
But it's
but-
like everyone.
Yeah, and husbands next to wives, like everyone stops and looks.
Yeah.
But again, it comes back to that small-minded town. You know what I mean? Like this town where it reminds me of things like when you watch movies about like the small village in the UK, when like every bit of gossip is the craziest thing that's ever happened in that place.
Yeah.
Malena is that level of,
And she's an
of
outsider
scandal
as well.
Yes,
So
she's married.
She's married someone
from-
who lives in the town,
who's away, in the
and
war.
he's gone off to fight in the war.
Yeah.
And pretty early on in the film, they find out that he's been killed. In conflict in North Africa.
Yeah.
Which devastating for Malena. Door opened for Renato. That's literally how he sees it. It's
And how everyone else sees it. But
well, that's true. Actually.
Yeah.
you know, she doesn't really have a lot of agency of her own, which kind of makes sense when you think about it being told from the perspective of Renato, right?
Sure.
Because he just, even though he feels that his intentions are more pure than everyone else, he thinks, everyone else just sees her as this object to objectify and to sexualize. As this noble, 12-year-old, have these such pure intentions and want good things for her, but he's doing the exact same things as everyone else.
Yeah.
So it makes sense
like
that she doesn't really have that agency of her own. She
yeah.
doesn't have much dialogue or depth as a character.
No.
And I think that's why some of the reviews talk about this being a bit male gazy.
Sure. Yeah. I could see
But
that.
I don't agree with that because I think it's not Malena's story.
No.
You know, she's on the poster and her name's in the title, but it's Renato's story of her.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it makes sense that she's going to be objectified. Whether or not that makes it okay, that's up to you to decide.
Yeah,
but I
Of
don't
course.
think
Yeah.
I don't think that's a deliberate choice in objectifying women in general. I think it's
It's
his story, right?
It's an
Yeah.
older man thinking about it, what he was doing at 12 years old.
Yeah, and it's the way that's what you've got to go into it watching and think the whole time. This is a 12-year-old boy,
Yeah.
and it's his perception of what's
Yes.
happening.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, and you see that as he imagines things happening in real life.
Yeah. Between.
Well, that's it. The first thing that he imagines is that he rides his bike to Malena's house and he's sitting outside across the road from it.
Yeah.
And then we see
The
Malena come out
Yeah.
Yeah.
and call to him and says, hey, you boy, come over here. Here's some money. Go buy me some cigarettes. And she drops the money on the ground. Renato bends down to pick it up, and as he looks up, she's sort of opening her dress up for him.
Yeah.
And then we cut to him sat across the road staring at the house.
Yeah.
And his imagination obviously starts running away with him, and he starts fantasizing about Malena constantly. He starts peeping through her windows and stealing her underwear, and much to his parents' dismay, is masturbating near constantly.
On a squeaky bed.
Yeah.
to which
Delicatessen style.
Very
Yes.
delicatessen
Yeah,
style.
yeah,
Yes.
to which we get one of the funniest lines in the film, which is his extremely animated Italian
Dad,
father
yeah.
screaming at him, "You're going to go blind,"
I love it.
which
That's
is just
gold.
so funny.
It's good.
which
It's
then
fucking
prompts him to basically stop, imagine in a scenario that he is blind, but then go out and get some. Oh no, he's got the grease from his bike.
the grease from the bike, and he uses it on
fixes
the bed.
springs so
Yeah.
that the parents then can't hear.
But it becomes, it sort of goes from this cute infatuation to this like sort of really unhealthy obsession.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And the townspeople who would always, they'd sort of been very reticent towards Malena initially. They sort of start to grow more antagonistic towards her. The
Yes.
women start saying that, she's a whore, she's a tramp.
Yeah.
She's trying to steal all of our
And
husbands.
that's also consequential because of that. Because once the news of her husband's death reaches the town, it's people then trying to, even if it's not the husbands deliberately, but we get the lawyer, we get the banker, we get the people who are then trying to, court Malena ultimately. For lack of a
they're
better
going
word.
to her house.
And then it becomes, it becomes a literal dick measuring contest of
Yeah.
who's going to bag Malena.
Yeah.
And it's not whether the husbands are getting stolen from the wives, but it's like, are the husbands antagonizing to get it happen? You know what I mean? So it's this whole,
Well, that's it.
None
the
of
men,
it is Malena's
no,
fault.
no.
She
You know what I
does
mean? Yeah.
nothing wrong in the entire film, yet she's vilified by the
Yeah.
women for
Yeah.
being a whore, even though she's done nothing wrong.
Yeah. I hate getting vilified for being sexy. It's
I
fun.
know.
It's a tough existence.
It's every
It
day
is.
of Nick's life.
Just walk down the street in my sundress and everyone's like, "That fuck that trash."
But I mean, like a big thing as well is obviously husband dies at the war, and then her payments stop.
yes.
Yeah,
She can't afford a rent.
From
her military pension.
military pensions
And she obviously doesn't
stops.
work because she's
Yeah.
a woman in 1940 Italy.
Yeah. So she then literally doesn't have food.
No, so she's having to sort of, sweet talk these guys to try and get food basically to
Yeah.
survive.
So
And
anything
then-
she does is then out of kind of desperation.
Yeah, and the men all
survive.
treat her like a tease, and
Yeah.
the women think she's flirting with everyone,
Yeah.
and she just it's awful, the persecution.
Yes.
Through doing nothing but trying, firstly for existing,
Yeah.
and then secondly for just trying to survive. Yeah. And we sort of see as the war goes on and Malena's situation gets worse, and Renato, his obsession becomes, more.
There's less innocence behind it.
Yeah.
I think as the film goes
That's
on.
it. Like I said,
Yeah,
it goes
yeah.
from this sort of like
Yeah.
sweet little crush to,
Yeah.
like I said, he's constantly stalking her basically,
Yeah.
and watching
Yeah.
through her windows
Yeah.
and stealing her stuff,
Yeah.
and thinking that
Obsession. It becomes
Yeah,
true
yeah.
obsession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and that she's somehow wronged him
Yeah.
by because she's also seeing this other soldier who visits the
Yes.
town, and they
Yeah.
sort of actually have a genuine connection.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because this is a bit after her husband's death, and Renato sees that as some sort of betrayal.
Yeah.
It's like, buddy,
Despite her not having
she doesn't know you exist.
Yeah.
spoken to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's the thing, right? Is that
But it's funny. It's exemplifying these narratives that we can create in our heads as especially as teenage boys. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, or any teenager anyway. These false narratives we create to just try and justify feelings
Yeah.
in a time where we don't know how to control hormones and emotions and things like that. When you're constantly looking for a justification, the craziness comes out a little bit. You know what I mean? Like we've all been there. You know,
But I mean, that's it, right? Like teenage
Yeah,
boys are definitely more guilty of it, and men in general.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
I remember going to school in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and girls, thinking that they could that they would one day have Justin Bieber or the members of One Direction slide into their DMs.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like you were a 13-year-old
that too.
schoolgirl.
Yeah.
You
I
were,
thought
you were
Justin was
sliding
gonna
into
call me one
the.
day.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you were sliding into their
mine.
DMs.
Yeah.
Nick, please stay out of the DMs of teenage
No,
girls.
it's funny actually. I guess our comparison as well is movies. Like I
Yeah.
remember being so obsessed with film. I still am, I guess. That's why we do this podcast. But
what else do you do?
you fall in love with the characters, and then you fall in love with the actors, and you're like, they don't know me. Like I know that
Yeah.
now as an almost 30-year-old man. I'm like, I get that. But yeah, we all understand where that obsessive mindset comes from because we just create this feeling. We create,
Yeah.
But, I mean, I was definitely going to marry Queen Amidala when I was 12.
Yeah.
If Anakin could do it.
So we're going to go Keira Knightley or Natalie Portman though? Because remember, there's two.
I mean, there's not a bad option, is there?
See, George knew what
Objectifying
he was
women in
doing.
the podcast.
So this movie's produced by. No. We'll talk about that later.
But I think I think to boil it down to a film about a really attractive woman and the teenage boy who has a crush on her would be super reductive.
Yeah,
I think there is a lot of there's a lot of layers and a lot of themes here, and like war-torn Italy and Europe during World War II isn't just a setting or a backdrop; it's very much shaping the story, and because at one point the Germans, the Nazis, start to occupy the town as the war progresses, and Malena latches on to the Nazis because she knows that if she can get into bed with them literally and figuratively, she might be able to survive herself. Because she's got no one to look after her because the whole town is out to get her.
And by the way, we didn't even mention she's looking after her father as well at the beginning of all of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Her-
she's
her
got
elderly
this-
father.
So
So it really
all these things happening behind closed doors that no one knows about yet.
Who
They're
even,
casting
like,
this judgment upon her. Yeah.
The father then
Yeah. He's,
almost this is because of
Well,
town
he
gossip.
Like,
gets,
I had a hot daughter, damn it. Yeah.
Well, he gets an anonymous letter sent to him.
Yes.
saying,
That's right.
your daughter is sleeping around
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she's, the town bike.
Yeah.
He basically has
Yeah.
has a heart attack, basically, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he disowns her as well. So
Yeah.
she's lost her husband,
Yeah.
she's lost her father,
Yeah.
she has nobody, she's a stranger in this place.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay, she's shacking up with
And then
Nazis, but
It's
to
funny
survive.
that
To
bleeding
survive.
heart of Renato, right? Who's got that mentality of like, I can save her, like we've all been there, buddy, don't worry. But you know what I mean? Like, I agree. I think back to the comments earlier about how like there's a bit of shallowness to Malena as a person. Like, I don't think there is, but again, the movie is about Renato. The movie is about his obsession. It's about his mindset and his recollections of it. And I think the movie does a really good job of providing that perspective and insight. But like Kieran was saying, it's to the backdrop of this like very identity-rich location.
Yes.
Like, it's very much a character. It's so corny to say like the location is a character itself, but it really is. Like, I think the director really puts a lot of life into this small town, and it's kind of sad to see it get torn apart, not just by the war, but by people's judgments of Malena.
Yeah, the color, the
Oh,
tone.
it's beautiful.
it is the most orange film I've ever seen.
Yeah. There's some epic shots as well. Like it's
a
kind of
big movie.
it doesn't-
Yeah, like the town
it kind of
square
doesn't
filled
feel
with
like it, but then
hundreds of people.
yeah.
Especially in the scenes where they're,
Or when the Germans arrive, like it's a massive set piece.
parading through the streets, and you've got, and even when Malena's sort of walking through the town square,
Hundreds
you've got
of
these hundreds of
extras,
people
yeah.
turning to watch her, and
Some
it is
iconic moments from
it's
that.
a big film.
There's definitely scenes I've seen from this film previously. Like the cigarette scene is, I think, one of the most well-known shots of.
And
Actually,
I mean,
when
it's a heartbreaking but beautiful scene.
it is. No, I had to. When I told my partner I was watching this because I had to justify the fact I was about to watch boobies all over our television. She was like, "Oh, is that the movie with the smoking scene?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know, I haven't seen it."
Wow.
And then she pulled up the photo and she's like, "Yeah, no, I know of this." So I'm like, my partner who doesn't watch, like, she watches 3 movies a year with me, like new elements of Malena. So it has this iconic, aesthetic to it, I guess. As well.
And a lot of people would probably know what we're talking about, even if they can't picture it. If you search for Malena smoking scene, you'll go, I've
there.
seen that shot.
But even the shots of her, walking, that whole scene leading up to it, I think is quite well known in at least in the cinephile community. And maybe it's,
Well, that's sort of a real turning point in the film, because that is after the town is bombed and her father is one of the casualties.
Again, to the bigness of the film, like the destruction of the town afterwards. The set design's impressive.
So the town gets bombed by the Allies, and then Malena's father is one of the casualties.
Yes.
And so at this point, she has no one. Her father, who had at that point disowned her, her husband is dead. So she's sort of forced to accept that she's going to have to prostitute herself to survive.
Yeah, brutal. It's sad.
So she cuts her hair to look younger and more attractive. She dyes it this really striking red color to stand out more.
The idea that Monica Belluci, to get more attractive, was just like, I've just got to trim my hair a bit. Monica, come on.
You didn't think it was possible.
I was like, whoa.
I didn't
She
take
did
that as her trying to get more attractive.
Without just changing her identity,
I
maybe.
just did it as a change of identity.
I thought, like,
But I guess once she went red and walked through the town, then I was like, oh, hang on, you've just...
There's a bit more seductress about it.
Well, that's it. She's homely in a way that Monica Belluci can be homely. Right? Like, she doesn't wear overtly revealing clothing. She doesn't sort of go around dressing herself up and presenting herself. She's just a very attractive woman. But she deliberately sort of goes out in this quite eye-catching clothing. She's dyed her hair to be more noticeable, and she sits down at the cafe. She goes to light up a cigarette, and sort of men just flock to her to light her cigarette for her. And there's just this sadness in her eyes as she sort of accepts her fate. She goes, "This is what I have to do now. This is who I've become now." So it's this really beautiful looking scene. The sadness behind the context of it. And what she has to go through to get by, just purely through being vilified. By the women and
by
objectified
smaller
by the men.
people, right? Like by people who are not, by people who, for me, what I took away from some of it is people who are affected by this war and need something else to think about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's not much going on in this small town.
Yeah.
So even if vilifying the town beauty, I guess, brings them a bit of control, a bit of, it's not right, but it's what they feel like they needed. And it's quite, it's sad, but it's...
Yeah.
And she's the outsider, right? Like, so it's so easy to other,
Yeah.
someone who's...
We're
who's
currently fighting your type over, you know what I mean? Like, it's that sort of mentality of like, we've let you into our town. Yeah, it's very...
And that's, and she's just from a different town. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's not like she's, English or French and she's on the other side of the
She's
war.
Italian, right?
Yeah. She's just different.
Yeah.
And because the women feel threatened by her and the men feel entitled to her.
Yeah.
And that's why I disagree with the negative reviews saying that it's just, it's purely about the male gaze and it's objectifying women. I don't
A lot of
think
Renato energy about that. No, sorry. Defending her honour.
there's a bit of Renato in all of us.
Well,
after watching what Renato does every night, I feel like Renato's given me a lot more than I thought I was going to get.
There's a bit of Renato in all of us and a lot of Renato in the sheets.
That's the episode there. Well done. That's perfect. That's great.
But I do think it's reductive.
Yeah.
To
No,
criticize it for that.
I totally agree.
I agree as well.
I totally agree.
Because I think
I think you are looking at it from the wrong point of view.
exactly.
Yeah.
So not to say that you don't understand the film, but you don't fucking understand the film.
It's just critics in general, isn't it?
Because I think she's a victim, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And like we said, she might not have as much agency as you would expect, but that is because it's not her story; it's a story about her.
Yeah.
Yes.
As we kind of touched on with it being Renato's portrayal. For such a dour film, like I went into this based on the synopsis of it being an erotic drama, that it was going to be a bit more Et Mama Tambien. It's depressing.
It absolutely is, and it's interesting watching that juxtaposed with the energetic innocence of a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And his fantasies, and his sexual imagination.
Yeah.
And there are some weirdly funny moments, like we talked about with the father yelling, you're going to
I found myself laughing, especially the first half.
Yeah, because for me, it shifts.
Yes.
So, and whether we get into this now or later, I had an issue with, I just didn't know what I was watching after a little while.
Yeah, that's fair.
So for me, it was because I'm watching it and I'm like, and I think the main start scene where he comes home and it's about the trousers and the dad is going ballistic and he's like hitting the kids.
It's almost comical. Like,
but that's what I mean. I'm like,
Renato
hang on.
steals a pair of his dad's trousers because in those
Were they
times
his
apparently,
wedding trousers or something?
I think they were
or-
just his trousers
I
because
think I thought it was like his wedding trousers, and then he was like, "My dad's never going to wear these again, but he wants to be buried in them." Or
could be, yeah.
Yeah,
right,
And I mean,
okay.
you watch different versions and they have different subtitles. and things,
true.
He steals a pair of his dad's trousers because he wants to look older.
Yeah,
Because all the boys wear shorts.
Yes.
Or short
And
pants.
he's younger in a group of older
Yes.
boys
and he's
too,
quite,
as well, so
and he's
definitely
quite a small,
trying.
small
Yes,
kid.
yeah.
So he's
Literally, they literally measure each other's dicks.
Literally,
He gets laughed at for
yes.
having a tiny
Like,
penis.
Nick wasn't kidding when he
We
said
all
it was
pay.
a dick measuring contest.
Yeah, come on, guys. Like, just because I was the Renato of my dick measuring group.
Nick's a grower, not a shower.
Brianna would disagree.
Yeah, needs to show up.
Neither. What were we talking about?
Most people want to have a big dick and small balls. Nick has the opposite.
Giant balls. Giant, scarily big.
Renato
did
trousers.
something? The trousers, yes. That's fucking trousers.
So he steals his dad's trousers to go and get them hemmed up so that they're the right length for him.
For him, yeah.
His dad finds out, and his dad comes in screaming and shouting.
Probably barreling into,
Yeah.
like, scarily.
And just like
So-
slapping the shit out of everything that moves. Like he
Yeah.
finds Renato, starts yelling at him, starts slapping the shit out of him.
Yeah.
The mother's like, stop beating up the Renato.
Yeah.
He slaps the shit out of her.
Yeah.
And then the daughter comes in like, oh, what's happening in here? And he just slaps
Yeah.
her. And it's like, it's horrifying
But
that this
at
guy's
thi-
just like
But it's
At
beating the
this
shit out of
point,
her.
it's so over the top. I'm like, hang on. and this is after that happened, I'm like, hang on, should I have been laughing at that? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
But it feels funny because it's like
It does. That's what I mean.
It's almost
It's
caricature
so-
level. You've got this Italian man, you know, running around screaming gabagool and just slapping the shit out of everything, like throwing chairs at people and.
Yeah. And that doesn't go away for a good half an hour. Like even the people in the town, even the court case, like the lawyer is so over the top in the courtroom.
Yeah, it's real big. I'm not a big city lawyer.
Yeah.
Energy.
So
Comments of my town and
for all
commit
that
these
bit, I'm
crimes.
like, this has to be a comedy. Like when I finish this and look on IMDb, I'm sure it's going to say comedy. And then it didn't.
Yeah, wow.
But there are
then
far
there's
too
a
many
massive,
funny moments.
But then there's a massive shift.
Oh yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's probably around about the time when the bombing happens
Yes,
and
it
Malena
is.
sort of
It
changes her
is.
appearance.
Yeah, yeah.
But even the scenes where, and I think this speaks to Giuseppe Tornatore's love of films.
Yeah.
There's a lot of scenes of Renato imagining himself in movies and
Yes.
television shows.
Yeah. Loved it,
Yeah.
With himself as sort of the hero.
Yeah,
and,
he's,
and,
saving
Mal-
he's
Malena.
the,
and Malena's
he's
the,
the lead
damsel in
actor.
distress.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, he
yeah.
imagines himself in a western.
Yeah.
Loved all of that.
Yes,
you know,
I
I
did,
really loved
I
the
did.
And
imagery
that's you know what I imagine Cinema Paradiso is like, because that is
Sure.
a film about loving films.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of that love of cinema really comes across in those scenes
Yes.
of Renato
Yeah,
imagining himself in
Quickly,
those movies.
have you seen Sugar?
No,
Sugar on Apple?
need to. The
Yeah.
Colin
Is that the
Farrell
Colin
show?
Farrell one?
Yeah, directed by Fernando City of God. Morales.
yeah. Oh, is that him?
Yeah, all aided directed by him.
Oh, interesting.
But it's when you watch that, you'll see what I'm talking about
Okay.
there, because he
Okay.
does a lot of back shots of movies, and you can tell it's his love to cinema.
Yeah. And it's so like I think if it's done properly or if it's done improperly, it can come across as a
Yes.
bit cheesy.
Yeah.
But I think when it feels so genuine, it's so exciting to
Yeah.
see like a director's love of films come across in
Yeah,
his own film.
it is. It is.
With like,
I
these
did love.
homages.
I love that bit. Those bits. Yeah.
I think one of the best or one of the funniest moments is that Renato goes to the church. And obviously,
yeah.
you know, Italy is the center for Catholicism. Right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
deeply religious people, especially at that time. So he goes to the church and he walks along and he's looking at all the statues of the saints.
Yeah.
And he's like looking, he's like, nah, looks at another one, he's like, nah, not that one. And he finds one and he goes up to him and he's like, nah, I can't really talk about this to anyone, but you seem nice, you look all right. And he's like, I'll do all these good things, I'll be a good little Catholic, if you look after Malena, if you take care of her and look out for her.
Yeah.
And then he sort of
Which
comes...
is so sweet.
It's
You know,
so
is
like,
very
it's so
sweet.
Again,
Yeah.
and that's when he still has that sort of like childlike
Yes.
innocence before it becomes creepy.
Yeah.
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 Before he starts stealing her underwear.
Putting over his
Let's just say
head-
though, he was
head while he-
masturbating before he got creepy too. That did not stop. That was a constant throughout.
Oh,
his,
that's half the film,
his
really.
affection. Yeah.
when the parents find
Right,
it,
the
the dad goes
ballistic,
ballistic
he
again.
Again,
blows
with
up.
the slapping and the yelling.
Slaps the shit out of everyone.
Hey, what's the matter, you? Eh?
Forehands, backhands. Dad's
Yeah.
got to slap ups and downs. He's all over the shop.
What are you, like a sadist, a masochist, or even worse, pervert?
Yeah.
That was a good line. But yeah, he's praying to the to
but
the
then
saint.
sort of all these bad things start happening to Malena, and Renato goes back to the church,
Yeah,
and he basically looks at the saint and goes, "You didn't hold up your end of the bargain," and then like just smashes the hand off it. 'Cause
love
He's got
it.
his hand.
He's got his.
He's got his hand in a
just broken
cast.
his arm,
Yeah.
hasn't he?
because he's fallen out of a tree
Yes.
spying on Malena,
yeah.
and he's got a cast on his
funny.
hand.
Stupid game, stupid
That's
prizes,
funny.
right? Yeah, that is a good
And
thing.
then the saint, the statue of the saint with its outstretched hand, he just whacks it
whacks
off
it. I love
and
it.
smashes the. And it's comical.
Yeah, it is.
It's
it
good.
is.
But like you
Yeah.
said, it definitely
But you would-
changes tone.
You would
quite
think that as a
drastically.
12-year-old boy, right? You're
True.
like, hey, fuck you, man.
True. Yeah, that's true.
See you later. But yeah, there is a big, the bombing is a big part, and there is also a scene involving Malena there's actually two scenes involving Malena that are also part of that big tonal shift but I don't think it's, for me anyway, it wasn't necessarily drastic in the sense of jolting. I think for me it was just, okay, well, obviously we've had this ramping tension of how people in the town feel about Malena. It's got to hit a climax at some point, because we know for a fact Renato was climaxing multiple times before that. But I think for me, as I was watching, I was like, it's just got to reach this sort of natural climax, and what happens to Malena.
Yeah.
to me, like it does shift tonally, but I think that's where the story had to
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
in a
yeah,
sense,
I
you know what I
agree.
mean? Yeah.
It doesn't feel like an out of place shift in tone. It is just quite sudden and quite sharp.
Yeah. Looking back on it, I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
At the time, I'm
sure.
like, what?
What am
I'm
I watching?
Fairly
Yeah.
sure I was watching
A different movie.
a fairly absurdist Italian comedy.
yeah,
right?
for sure.
I'll tell you what that does actually remind me of. I didn't feel it as much with this, but what you're saying reminds me exactly of the Correida film that we went and saw together, Monster.
Oh yes.
Because with that felt like I
Yeah.
didn't know what I was watching.
Yes.
Like the tone felt all over the place.
You're
I was like,
so
am I supposed to be
right.
laughing at this?
Yes.
Is this serious? Is this funny?
Yes.
And then the tone shifted quite drastically.
Yeah, I agree. I want to watch
so
that
that's
again. For
that's
sure.
a
So
very
do I.
similar.
I actually, that is this is throwing back to the last episode, what you said about a 3-star movie that's like
Yes.
Monster is one that I have not stopped thinking about, that I gave like a 3.5.
Yeah.
But I have not stopped thinking about it, and I'm like, oh shit.
I've
is that
thought
actually
so
like
many times I want to watch that
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
We watched that we were doing a double bill, weren't
we
we?
biffed.
So-
We did it with Poor Things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
you guys watched.
we didn't get
all watched
time to think
Monster,
about it after.
and then you guys went straight
Straight
into
into
Poor
Poor
Things.
Things.
And then we were like, holy fucking Poor Things.
Poor Things.
Yeah.
So I really want to revisit that film.
But I agree, that's a film that I didn't love,
Yeah.
but I love
Yes.
thinking about and
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah.
But I definitely felt what you were saying with
The
Malena
tone
in
thing.
terms of I'm like, what am I actually watching?
Yeah.
So it is quite jarring. But it does sort of reach, I guess, a climax for Malena when she, she sort of accepts her fate, right?
Sure.
And around that time, sort of it reaches a climax as well for Renato in that he sees Malena sort of fraternizing with these Nazi soldiers, and he goes into a state of shock because I think even for Italian fascists, the Nazis were seen as, it's like, they're a bit too fascist.
Yeah. I'm happy over here with my fascism. You stay over there and do
you've
your
got
fascism.
fascism, and
You're
then
the
you've
real
got
thing.
fascism.
yeah.
So he faints.
Yeah.
The sight of Malena with these two Nazi soldiers is and he pictures her having sex with them, and he faints at the thought of it. His mother takes him to the doctor.
I love this.
yeah.
The
This is one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
The doctor decides that he's possessed by a demon,
Yes.
and that he requires an exorcism.
Fucking hilarious. I lost my shit when he said that. Back in the day when you could diagnose possession and the medicine is like, let's get an exorcism for your boy.
That's it. Medicine back then was either
love
just
it.
like full of cocaine,
Yeah.
or it was exorcisms.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, that was the only two treatments
I was like,
available
give
to
me
you.
both, to be honest. I was like, I missed the 1940s, man.
So his mum takes him to the church to have this exorcism, and meanwhile the dad is stood
dad's
outside being
response.
like, "What the fuck is this?"
The dad's is where I lost it because
so
he's like,
funny.
he's a 12-year-old. He just needs to fuck.
Yeah.
He literally said, I'm like,
Like, that's it. I feel bad about liking the dad because he was
Yeah.
just seen beating the shit out of his
Yes,
entire
I know.
family. But the
But
dude is
it's-
based as fuck.
Yeah.
He's like,
boy just
he's
needs
not
nut.
possessed. He's just got to get his nut off.
So
So what does he
then
do?
proceeds to
What do you
take
He takes
him
him to a brothel.
Take your 12-year-old son to the brothel. Father-son date.
experience.
Father,
Yeah,
son,
that's
what was it? Male
Bondage?
bondage, Josh?
Male bondage.
Male bondage,
That's right.
that's
yeah.
right.
So he takes him to the brothel, and he's sort of looking at all these women, and none of them are doing anything for him because I don't think he's not interested in sex. He's interested in Malena, right?
the
And then he
infatuation,
sees a woman who looks vaguely like her, and we sort of get this very uncomfortable sex scene.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
that and thinking about it right now, that's an interesting scene because all those women in there are like right up in his face,
Yeah.
like exposing,
Yeah,
really out,
Like trying to get his attention.
get his attention.
one-
But the one that's standing afar, not saying anything on her own.
That's the one he picks.
That's the
It's
one
not
he
just that
picks.
she looks like Malena.
very
She's
interesting. I didn't pick that
standing
up
in the
that
doorway.
first time.
She's silent,
Yes.
and he chooses her.
Yeah.
Very
because
interesting.
she's observing.
Yes.
And from a distance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's clever.
And it's she doesn't look like, if you look at her, you don't think,
Yeah.
oh, is that Monica Belluci?
No.
But then in the sex scene, they start cutting between her
Between the
and
two
Monica Belluci,
actresses, yeah.
and you start getting confused about
Yes.
who's who,
Yeah.
because obviously he's imagining that it's her,
Yeah.
and it's.
I like
it's
the
really
comment
well
there as
done.
well, where she says, "Have you done this before?" And he's like, "Yes, I've imagined it many times."
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Again, as you
The
would
confidence.
yeah.
The confidence.
Yeah,
I
and
love
you're-
it.
the
when you're a
The
teenage boy.
confidence is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then literally pictures her as Malena.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely. I mean, you could not make this film in America.
No.
And not just for the gratuitous
content,
sex,
yeah.
not just for the fact that it's about a 12-year-old boy jerking himself off to the world's end. You've got literal scenes of Renato, who I think was
15 at
was
the time of
15 at the
filming.
time, and Monica
Yeah.
Belluci was about 35.
Yeah, and
and
those
they're
scenes.
kissing each other in
Yeah,
scenes. It's like,
yeah.
I don't know how I feel about this.
What I did note,
Jealous? I knew how I felt. Fucking jealous.
That kid would have been so popular at school afterwards.
my
Yeah,
God,
man.
yeah.
Oh, what'd you do
Fuck.
on your weekend? Oh, just rode my bike
did
around town.
kind-
What'd you do? Fucked Monica Belluci, bitch.
Oh god.
There's film
Italy
to prove it.
Italy just does this.
Like he doesn't even have a Wikipedia page because I assumed that he just retired from acting and life
Yeah.
after that.
Well,
because
you've
I
won.
would. If I was
You've
15
won.
and I just made out with
Once
Monica
you've
Belluci,
seen-
I'd be like, that's it.
Once you've
It
seen
do-
God,
I
there's
won.
nowhere else to
It
go.
doesn't get better. What's the point? I've peaked.
This movie is 10 out of 10. For
what
Renato.
I did note though is she, like,
Sorry.
Monica Belluci in those scenes wasn't really kissing. Like if you watch,
Yeah, she's
which
because
I wonder if that's
because I had this
participant,
discussion with Susie after
Yeah.
I watched it on my own, but then I was like,
Well, yeah. Lights off.
this is what I watched.
Windows
like,
closed.
and just went through
Need
it
to
all.
get this off my
I need to
chest.
get it off my chest. And I was like, how do you do those scenes with such a young boy? But
Italy.
she was definitely, well, yeah. But I assume, there was a reason for her not.
It's,
Like
yeah.
it is, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
That has, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you would not get this film made, and I mean,
You also couldn't make it in the reversing the genders.
oh god, no.
Like that's
Well,
another thing
You look at a film like that, I guess in the last few years has probably copped more scrutiny because of like Leon the Professional. You know what I mean? Like that, and that is a far less sexualized
But that's
film.
that's
But
probably
that
been
is-
criticised
Yes.
more. But I mean, that obviously comes back to the history of
Sure.
men's treatment towards women and
Absolutely.
abuse and things
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah.
And the power dynamic.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
very
There's
different.
an absolutely justified reason.
Yeah,
for it.
Yeah, it makes sense why it's more criticised, but it is interesting that
Yeah.
a film like Leon that's not overtly sexual
But
compared to
there's-
a film that is straight up
absolutely
Yes.
is
sexual. But that also does, get into the issue of is it Luc Besson?
Luc
Yes.
Besson, yeah.
Yeah, and-
There's some stuff there, yeah.
Yeah, and
but I
his
mean, this
questionable
film's not
history.
innocent of it as well. When you've got one Harvey Weinstein attached to the US distribution of this film.
I think you'll find it was actually his Italian cousin, Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein,
Weinstein.
the Jewish Italian one. Yeah. Not many of those, hey. So yeah,
Well, that's- yeah.
but for context of it all, Harvey Weinstein produced the film in the sense that he brought the distribution rights for the United States.
Okay.
So he distributed it.
Yeah, so
in the
Miramax
US.
distributed it.
Miramax,
Yeah, okay.
But in the US, they did shave off 16 minutes.
Very unlike Harvey.
Because I guess that's a note to say. We watched the European version.
Yes,
Yes,
so we
the
saw it.
uncut
It's
original
40
version,
minutes,
yeah.
which is 108 minutes. Yeah, the United States cut is 92 minutes. That's
is
16 minutes of the
crazy.
film. That is a lot of film
that's
to lose.
so much.
Yeah,
film.
heaps. Yeah.
And it's not just like you're losing unnecessary, sex scenes.
There's a lot of
It's so integral
so
to
much
the
of his
character and the plot
imagination. Yeah.
that it's not the same film without them.
No, it wouldn't be.
You can't lose that much of a film. and-
This
and
brings
keep
up then an interesting conversation that as well, is that apart from the brothel scene and the excessive masturbation,
And we
all of the-
emphasize excessive.
all of the sexual scenes are in the imagination
They are.
of Renato.
They are.
So it brings up an interesting moral quandary of the fact of like, this film is not outwardly showing a child having sex or having sexual activity with an older woman.
Yeah.
It's all in his mind.
Yeah.
The same way people imagine whatever they want to imagine when they are in the act of the throes of passion. So like
Coitus.
It's coitus, self Coitus.
Self-coitus.
So yeah, I think there's an interesting discussion to have outside of just the critical analysis of the film itself, in the sense of like what does how far can you push something like that as someone's genuine, and how much then do you want to show an audience of that as well? Because there is no point where Renato and Malena hook up at all.
And I think that speaks to our own values is the wrong word, but I guess what we're comfortable with, because you think about something like this. This made me less uncomfortable than the film we watched last month in On Body and Soul, and the scenes of cows being slaughtered.
Oh yeah.
I mean, admittedly, that's real footage.
Yeah.
You know, we are really seeing cows being slaughtered. But that made me more unsettled than anything in this, and I think that speaks to American values as well, in that they'll happily slap an M on something with heads being blown off. But as soon as someone swears or someone shows a nipple, you know, won't somebody think of the children?
Think of the kids. More nipples. Cinema needs
Fucking
more
Americans.
Nipples. That's what I reckon. More nipples in cinema. The world will be a much happier place.
Well, Malena, that's a fair bit of nipple, I tell you.
Big recommendation.
Big
recommendation.
But this does end, and we won't talk about the ending too much, but this does end with a pretty harrowing scene.
Yep.
You know, sort of when the war ends, and the townspeople sort of decide what to do with Malena now that the war is over and the Americans have arrived, and the Italians are like, we were never fascists, it was all just pretend. See, I was only pretending to be a Nazi. And that's really hard to watch.
Yeah.
That's tough. You know, what sort of
It brings
happens to
back
her.
this stark reality of the whole situation, I think, as well. Like outside of the fantasy elements, it's
That's right. Yeah.
And I find it really interesting because there's the tagline for the film says something about you know, and the boy who gave everything to protect her.
Yeah.
Renato doesn't do shit.
He doesn't do shit.
He stands there and he watches
I
as people are awful to her. At no point does he stand.
I
He's
thought
a
he
12 or 13-year-old boy.
I did think he's just going to run over and like protect, you know, just
But he doesn't.
protect the situation.
And I think that is, to me, that's where the message of the film comes through. That he's no better.
Yes.
He
totally.
thinks he's innocent of the objectification and
We're
the
all the hero
sexualization.
of our own story,
Yeah,
right?
but he is just as bad as the creepy lawyer who tries to you know, manipulate her into sleeping with him, as the lieutenant who uses her and then pretends that they were never involved together. He is as bad as all of them, even if he is just a boy, because and arguably in some ways he's worse because he thinks what he's doing is noble. And I think that's the takeaway from the film.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
Nick, do you want to kick us off with a rating?
Yeah, I'm going back and forth on this one because initially it was a 3.5 for me. Like I enjoyed it. I thought it was really well put together. I don't think I was as emotionally invested and moved as others might be. So I think I'm going to stick with a 3.5. But I can see it. You know, as always, usually after these discussions, it could rise up a little bit like that. So, but I
Is
think
there actually a shot of that? Like the first time that
He gets a
Renato
boner,
sees
Yeah.
Malena,
Yeah,
he
the
gets a
camera pans down
Yes,
to his crotch.
and he's
And he gets a
definitely
boner.
got
yeah.
And you
Cinema.
almost, and you do kind of feel at that point that is maybe his first,
yeah, it
the
definitely
memorable
feels
one.
because
like
he kind of
yeah.
looks
a
down
sexual
and-
awakening.
Yeah, it's like, whoa,
As we
what's
all
going
did.
on? I'm gonna go home and
What the fuck is that?
Anyone else just punch it, just trying to get rid of it? No? Okay. Just me. 3.5.
knocking on walls like.
Whoa, shit.
Down, boy.
Which way should I go? Yeah.
Josh?
Yeah, this conversation's changed
A little bit,
my
yeah.
rating for sure. I was giving it a 3. Very interesting. I'm going to steal exactly what you said of the last film.
Yep.
And that's in this conversation. I'd much like. There's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to unpack with the film. I'm starting to discover, like, with Memories of Murder, it was another one where I'm like, what am I watching? Is this a comedy? Should I be?
Yep.
I feel like sometimes when I get in that space, I almost start to check out a bit because I'm like, I just don't know if I'm meant to be laughing or not.
Sure, yeah.
And I had that feeling. Talking about it today, bringing a lot of things up, I'd definitely go 3.5 now. So
nice.
it's definitely raised up half. Yeah, there's a lot to like go into with the war backdrop.
Yes. Yeah.
I think watching it again, I would be able to realize that comedic stuff at the start, and then knowing the shift, I think it would be a different experience.
Yeah.
It's a well-made film.
As we said, it's gorgeously shot.
It's
I mean,
really-
it was nominated for
Yeah.
Best Cinematography at the Oscars.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there we
that is.
You know, which for a film with this kind of content, for the
Yeah.
Oscars to touch it is
Yeah, yeah.
quite impressive. And
Yeah.
something we haven't touched on
It's
is...
the power of Harvey, isn't it?
was the power
and,
of
and was nominated for Best Original Score as well, which
Yeah.
I did think at the time the score was really impressive.
Yeah. It's like,
And scored by Ennio Morricone, who most people would know for doing the Sergio Leone westerns,
Oh,
so The Good, the Bad, and the
right,
Ugly,
okay.
and
Yeah, okay.
that's like those iconic.
Yeah,
came out of
right.
retirement for the Hateful Eight.
Yeah. So I mean, big name in film scores,
Yeah.
and you can definitely tell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's got his blueprint on it.
Yeah, but three and a half, I think. Yeah.
I'm going to go 3.5 as well.
There we go.
Yeah, I think mine's
Across the
probably a
board.
more solid 3.5
Yeah.
than perhaps what you guys landed on. I think
Yeah.
it's a pretty comfortable
Yeah.
3.5.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really interesting because it's got pretty good user reviews. But you look at the critical rating, and I mean, it's a 54
Yeah,
on
right.
Metacritic. It's a
Yeah.
5.6 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is quite low.
That's very low.
Especially for, again,
But then
the
it's
guy
what-
behind Cinema Paradiso,
Yeah.
which is, I'm sure.
But then it's like 7.4 on IMDb, which is a strong score on IMDb.
Yeah, and Letterboxd, I feel like it skews
Okay.
high-ish,
Yeah.
maybe around a
Yeah,
3.5.
Yep.
And I mean, that's interesting as well because I think you look at the demographic of Letterboxd,
Yes. Yeah.
and that tends to skew younger with Letterboxd. It tends to skew more progressive,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term. So a film that does come across as very male-gazy
Yes.
wouldn't necessarily resonate. So I think that it's definitely
3.6.
Yeah.
on
that's
Letterboxd.
quite high.
That's
I
very
think,
high on Letterboxd.
especially compared to what it is on Metacritic and Rotten
Yeah,
Tomatoes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think there is a lot of depth to it.
There is. Yeah.
It's a beautifully shot, beautifully scored film,
Yeah.
and I think it's definitely one that you can get something out of on a rewatch.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Those scores are skewed by the American version / the
Yeah,
That's
because
very
as we
true.
said,
That's a good
that
point
is
as well.
a completely different film.
yeah, that's a
without
2.5 without the sex.
that
So
element.
probably a 1 actually. Now I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
It's it won the Grand Prix at the Cabourg Film Festival, which is held in Normandy every year.
Okay.
So another grand prize winning film
Yeah,
at a
yeah.
film
Yeah.
festival.
Yeah. Not the Sydney Film Festival.
Not the that's the crowning jewel.
That's
Every director wants to win a Sydney International
That's why they
Film
always
Festival.
send in videos and don't rock up live in person when they want to receive their award
Yeah,
from the Sydney
yeah.
Film Festival.
Um,
Not digging yours, let me back next year.
but I I
Burn
did
all my bridges.
I did genuinely enjoy it.
Yeah.
So did I, yeah.
On reflection, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was in a state of I'm not sure what I watched. Like for the last 3 days, I'm like I am not sure what. But talking about it,
How good's
Yeah, yeah.
film discussion?
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
Yeah, and I think that's the great part about these conversations, right? Is that we see things from different perspectives, and
Yeah.
we go, oh, I didn't pick up on that, or oh, I didn't see it that way.
Yeah.
And I think it unlocks different
Yeah, it does.
perspectives on the
Yeah,
film.
yeah.
So that's Malena.
Yep.
Yes.
We hope you've enjoyed. We did, but clearly not as much as Renato
Watch
did.
the European version.
Watch
watch
the
the
European
European
version,
cut, yeah.
because like everything the Americans do, their version's worse. I stand by the UK office being the better version.
Oh yeah, I'm with you there.
Excellent. We can stay being friends. So, next month's episode, we're going over to Nick's pick.
Yes.
So, Nick, what are we going to be watching next?
Well, I've been toying. After talking about so much stuff sexually this episode, I need a break. I need a cigarette and I need a break.
Okay.
No, so it's a film. We're going to Japan for this one here, and it's a name that I think is almost shocking. That firstly, I haven't seen a film from this director, but also that he hasn't popped up on the show yet. And we're going to watch an Akira Kurosawa film.
Oh
Shit.
And we're going to watch arguably what is regarded as his best film ever made, Seven Samurai.
I'm so excited.
I've not seen
I've
this
never
movie.
seen
No,
The Seven
I've
Samurai.
I've not seen a Kurosawa film.
I've never seen a Kurosawa film either, and I was thinking, I think that's almost a sin for this sort of podcast. So
So we've got to fix that.
we've got to fix that with Seven Samurai.
That's awesome.
I picked a film that's over 3 hours long. This is called
Actually, I don't
Progress.
care.
It's a
Yeah.
Christmas
This is called-
miracle.
It's a pre-Christmas miracle.
I'm a changed man after Stalker did not let
And
me
the thing
down.
is, you could have picked so many Kurosawa films as well because
Yeah.
he's done so many great films.
I was toying with Ran, which I'm sure will pop up on the show.
Russia.
Right, yeah.
High and Low.
Yeah. But I think
is Ikaru
Ikaru was one of his, yeah.
Kurosawa. Like the man doesn't miss.
But Seven Samurai is the one where I was like, if I'm gonna start with Kurosawa, I
Yeah.
want to start with Seven Samurai.
I think that's
So-
it.
In the same way that if you want to start with Tarkovsky, you take
start with
Stalker.
Stalker,
Yeah.
If you want to start with Bong Joon-ho, you take Parasite. Like there's just
Exactly.
some films that it's like
You
the,
just got to give.
that's
go.
the movie.
So Seven Samurai is what we'll be doing in November. But
Before we get to November,
oh, that was very. There we go.
Jinx. We're getting in the spooky season.
It's October.
It's
It's
October.
Halloween, baby.
So looking ahead throughout the month of October, we know how much you guys love it when we drop an episode every week. We don't love it because we don't get to see our families.
Kieran actually keeps us in a basement until all the episodes for a month of films.
They love it.
Yeah, it's Kieran that comes up with these marathon ideas, isn't it?
I know, we
It's
love doing
but
that.
I do love
It's
it.
because I
love
have
it.
no friends. And this
so
is the only
sad.
way I can get them to hang out with me.
I love it.
So we're going to be covering 3 foreign horror films throughout the month of October for
excited for
Halloween.
this.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Horror is my genre. I'm
So
very
we've
excited.
all picked one film each. We've all gone to different countries.
Yes.
Some countries we've been to before, some we haven't.
Yeah.
Nick, do you want to tell us what your pick for Halloween will be?
Yes, it's a horror film I haven't seen, but it's one that I've been incredibly excited to watch. Yeah, no, I've never seen it.
I didn't know you hadn't
No, I've
seen
never
it.
seen it. I've seen scenes of it. I've never seen The Orphanage.
No,
and
I've never seen it.
I have seen scenes from that movie that terrified me. So
Okay.
we're going to watch The
Spain?
Orphanage.
Spain?
Spain, I believe.
Spain.
It's either
Yeah.
Spain or Mexico.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because the only other time we've been to Spain was for a horror film.
For
Red.
Wreck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wreck
so-
and Wreck too, yeah.
So,
So a couple of Spanish horrors coming up.
There's a scene that I vividly remember watching on YouTube that I was like, that is terrifying. I can't wait to see the whole film.
Okay,
So
I
The
didn't know you
Orphanage
hadn't seen that.
is my
Okay,
pick.
I'm excited about that.
Josh, what have you picked for us?
Going back to France, been there a few times, I know, but High Tension,
Which I've not seen either.
also
seen
known
that, yeah.
as Switchblade Romance. I don't know if they call that in America
Okay.
or... it's directed by Alejandro
Alejandro Aja.
Aja.
Ooh, he's got a new movie coming out this year, actually. By the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he did Crawl
Because he
recently,
did...
which was
Is that
fantastic.
the crocodile film?
The crocodile. film.
Yeah. And he also did the
The Hills
remake
Have
of...
Eyes.
Yeah, which I actually loved that.
Which is
And he-
fucked up. To be honest, it's a gross
Did he
movie.
do Horns?
The Daniel
I
Radcliffe
might
one?
have-
He did.
He did do
Which
it.
I
Yeah.
also
I love that film. So okay, I'm excited.
But yeah, High
He's
Tension.
a very prolific sort of horror director.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Knows how to make a creep fest.
High Tension or Switchblade Romance, depending
Cool.
on what country you're in. From France.
And I've gone with a film that I'd heard a lot about, and then when I was on my recent trip to the UK, I was in a second-hand shop and I saw the Blu-ray of this for like £2 or something, and I thought, I've got to pick it up.
That's 50 Australian dollars.
Yeah.
Just for those who don't.
20,000 yen. We'll do all the currencies. And that is the Swedish film, I think it's Swedish, Let the Right One In.
I'm so excited to watch this.
You haven't seen that?
No.
'Cause I've only seen the American remake.
You haven't seen it?
I've only seen the American remake, which is actually a great.
It's
film.
a great remake.
Okay.
It's, well, yeah, you would say great film. I definitely saw this before the remake.
Okay.
This
Look how excited
blew
we
me.
are. I love
Yeah,
Is it Swedish, am I right?
yeah, blew me away.
Yeah.
And then the remake came out, and I was like, oh, but it's a really good remake. It's
Matt
a
Reeves
good,
directed
good
it, that's
movie.
There you go.
Who did the Batman.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's it was one of those films
Oh,
that had been
wow,
on my
can't believe
list
you
for a
guys-
long time, and I
Yeah.
saw
These are 3 films I haven't seen. Yeah.
yeah, so I saw the Blu-ray of
Three
it, and I went,
horrors. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
you know,
good
I
time.
need to pick that up. So that will be what we're watching, and I think they're all sort of from the same kind of era, like 2000.
That mid 2000s
Like
era.
into
Yeah,
2010.
Yeah,
Yes.
they would be. Yeah, yeah.
I think The Orphanage is 2008 or 2009.
High
if I
Tension's
recall correctly.
2003.
I feel like Let the Right One In's maybe 2010.
Yeah, you'd be about right.
Yeah. And we've not been to Sweden before. We've done obviously Denmark and Norway.
2008.
2008.
Let the right one in.
Yeah, but they're all sort of in that same era.
That same era,
It'd be
yeah.
interesting to see what different European countries
Oh, and did you know they're doing a TV series?
for Let the Right One In.
Yeah.
I did not.
Yes.
Interesting.
There you go.
Coming up.
So you've got that to look forward to in October. 3 whole more episodes, which is going to be great.
Yeah.
Get our spook on. I'm not a big horror movie fan, which I've talked about on this show, but I say that, but then every time I watch a horror film, I end up loving it.
They're great.
But I think that's because I only watch the really good ones and I don't watch, Saw 27.
Yeah, I'm a bit in your
I do
camp.
that.
I'm very
Orphanage,
picky.
directed by J.A. Bayona, who just did Society of the Snow.
Oh, yes.
Like, he also did Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, I know. But, like, he also did
You gotta
Society
give
of
that
the
one.
Snow.
You gotta pay your bills.
No, yeah.
So, yeah, we've got 3 awesome films, I think. These are all very
And
highly
who's-
regarded.
I don't
Who's
know who
directed
did Let the Right One In.
in? That's a big director, I'm sure. Well, like, for a foreign
I've
director.
got it here. We got Thomas Alfredson,
Who did-
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy,
Yes.
The Snowman, but we're not going to blame him for that. Those are his 2 English language films. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I love Tinker Tailor
Tinker
Soldier
Tailor was
Spy.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that like all of those directors have done like quite big departures from horror.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because I
actually,
feel
very
like
good point,
horror
yeah.
directors tend to stay within their genre.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting
Yeah,
that
it
they've,
is.
it's always interesting when you see a director go from doing something good to going and doing something completely different. It's like
yeah.
with who directed Minari and has now directed
Oh, yeah.
Twisters?
Lee Isaac Chung.
Yeah.
You go from this really intimate, small-scale Korean American family drama to Twisters. But we're getting sidetracked.
Yes, October. We're excited.
Yeah.
We just got really
Yeah, we
excited.
are.
Yeah,
about
so
that.
keep an eye out. You're going to have lots of episodes to look forward to throughout October with those 3 horror films that we talked about. And then we're going to be picking back up in November for Nick's pick, which is 7 Samurai. If we start now, we might finish it in time. Thank you all for watching and for listening. If you're
great.
watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you get your podcasts, make sure you follow. Check us out on Letterboxd and Instagram at That One Inch Barrier, and all of our personal links will be in the description. But we'll see you next week for whichever horror film we decide to watch first. Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Don't go blind.